In these words, we're adding I-O-U-S. So when we add os to the end of a word, we're forming an adjective. And the I in these words is making the short it sound. So fury leads to furious. We have to change the Y to an I before we add the os. Same with vary, we change the Y to an I. Now the Y is also making a short it sound in those words too. So we've got curious, furious, dubious, various, serious, obvious, devious, previous, delirious, and hilarious. Now you can also see within these words, we've got a lot of R-controlled vowels. So you've got the UR in curious and furious, if you want to highlight those a different colour. You've got AR in various and ER in serious. And down the bottom here we've got delirious, we've got the IR and the AR in those. So do highlight them a different colour to help you as well. Now let's look at what each of these words mean. Curious means strange, and there's an idiom to match the word, which is curiosity killed the cat. So you're going to have a think about what that means, and then a good situation to use that in on day 2. So have to start thinking about that now. Furious means enraged, dubious means unsure, various means many, serious could mean careful consideration or application. It could be mean being thoughtful, and it could mean acting or speaking in earnest. Obvious means easily understood, clear and apparent. Devious means cunning. Previous means existing or occurring before. Delirious means raving. And hilarious means extremely amusing. Now I've put this card up for you too, this spelling rules card, because it relates to the Y and the I in these words. So it says I and Y may say it, I or E at the end of a syllable. And it may be influenced by the accent. So there's also some other spelling rules cards that refer to that same rule. Please go through and highlight the OUS on the end of each of these words, and you know OUS forms an adjective. Now the Y in fury and vary has changed to an I, but in all these words we've got an I before the OUS, so you could also highlight that to remind yourselves that you've got to write that in as well. Now the Y or the I in these two words is making the short it sound. So it's furios, verios. So when you're reading the words, read them, cover them, write them, and then check and make sure you do have that I in each of them. So here we want you to rewrite and match to the emoticon. So devious, you've got to find a picture that matches that one. Furious is pretty easy. You can work your way through the list. Fill in the gaps with the list word, shows that you know their meaning. Write the synonym or the word that means the same for the given list words provided. And complete the idiom. We talked about this on day 1. You've got to give the meaning of that idiom and then write a scenario that demonstrates this. Now you know these words all end in os, so they're all adjectives. Just don't forget that little it sound before the os at the end of each of the words. Write the adjective that originates from these nouns. So we've given you the noun, you have to write the adjective. Down here we want you to make the adjective into an adverb and write it in a sentence. Now we've given you the prompts there, adding the ly to form an adverb. Hopefully you know that by now. Down the bottom you have to fill in the gap with a list word or a list word extension. So make sure that the word that you use to fill in there does fit the sentence appropriately. And then you have to finish the sentence. So make your sentence as interesting as you can with lots of descriptive words. By now you would know that a dependent clause equals a subordinating conjunction plus a subject plus a verb. So you could have a dependent clause plus an independent clause to form a complex sentence, or you could have an independent clause added to a dependent clause to make a complex sentence. Now, an independent clause is a subject plus a verb. If you wanted to make it into a compound sentence, you could add a coordinating conjunction and another subject plus a verb. Now over here we just got talking about dependent clauses. So they add detail to an independent clause. They are dependent because they do not make sense on their own and need to be attached to an independent clause. One way to add a dependent clause is to insert a conjunction. Beth struggled to concentrate is an independent clause. The conjunction is as, and the dependent clause is she had a headache. You can put the dependent clause first, but you will need to add a comma before the independent clause. So as she had a headache, comma, Beth struggled to concentrate. So we've given you some subordinating conjunctions here for you to use below. And what we want you to do is to insert a dependent clause and use different conjunctions for each one. Now down here we're saying caution, avoid starting sentences with and, but, or because, but we want you to add that dependent clause at the start of these three sentences. So you'd have to be choosing other subordinating conjunctions, not those given ones. Write your own sentences that include a dependent clause. Note, have one that has the dependent clause first and another that has it at the end. And then down the bottom we've given you a reminder, did you add the comma when you put the dependent clause first?